All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here
Hi.
today. Welcome back. So today I'm actually not going to be using any visuals like I traditionally use. I want this session to be more of a discussion and just a conversation since this is our social workers support group. We are going to utilize the space to discuss a topic today and support one another. So, the topic for today is imposter syndrome and self esteem. So, the purpose of the group for today is just to explore imposter syndrome, what it is, how it impacts us as social workers, particularly our self esteem, and how we can develop some strategies to build confidence and manage our academic and career pressures as future social workers. So, this is a safe space for reflection, sharing, and supporting one another. So, I'm just going to remind everybody about our group norms and ground rules just to get a quick nonverbal or verbal agreement from everybody. Obviously, confidentiality, what is shared in our group here today stays here. Everyone should be practicing respectful and active listening. Let's let everyone finish speaking without interruptions, whether we're raising our hand or just waiting patiently for someone to finish what they were sharing before you dive in and share. Participation in the group, as always, is voluntary. Share as much or as little as you feel comfortable with. There's no pressure to engage in the conversation if it's a topic that makes you uncomfortable. And no judgment. No judgment. Everyone's experience is valid. Everyone has a right to their feelings and opinions. So just everyone keep that in mind. And then time management, time awareness. Just be mindful of the time of the group so that everyone gets a chance to speak and share their opinions and experiences. Does that all make sense to everybody? Are we okay with these ground rules? Perfect. Anything that we need to add to this? Great. Okay. So our icebreaker or warm up for today, I want everyone to go around and we're each going to share a word or a phrase that comes to mind when you do hear the term imposter syndrome, and what that means to you. So I can start us off as the facilitator. So, imposter syndrome for me is something that I have only recently heard about in the last couple of years since entering into our social work master's program. And when I think of imposter syndrome, I think of confidence and what everyone's confidence is. I think is associated with whether or not they have the feeling of imposter syndrome. I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks. And also, it's okay if you have never heard about imposter syndrome before today's group. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into what that phrase means. Um, but whoever wants to start, what is a word or phrase that you think of when you hear of imposter syndrome?
I think of perfectionism, that
Mm,
that's kind of what clouds the vision of who you really are and what you're doing.
very valid. Yeah, I like that, Joy. Morgan?
I think of questioning self, like questioning self-worth, questioning self-ability, maybe. So lots of questioning. I feel like that's what it reminds me of.
Definitely. That makes sense.
Um,
Natalie?
for, for me, I actually just kind of heard about this from TikTok. I was like scrolling on TikTok and like I've been getting a lot of videos about like people that are starting like their first clinical. And, like I was like, oh, imposter syndrome. And I was like, I kind of feel like I can relate to that a lot. So for me, I would say a phrase that like relates to that would just be like unsureness or like lack of confidence, I guess.
Sounds good. Yeah. Sam?
So mine is more like a phrase, I guess. Like not good enough.
Mm,
Despite, especially if it comes to social work, right?
mhm.
Being a social worker. Um, it's like even if I have a degree, even if I went through all of this work, this clinical, working with all these people, um, am I still good enough? Like, am I actually really a professional social worker? Do I know enough? So I guess not being good enough or feeling good enough.
Yeah. And that, Sam, thank you for sharing. Thank you everyone for sharing. But that's actually kind of a perfect segue into our first discussion in group today, just on the definition of imposter syndrome. And you were getting there, Sam, with what you were saying. Um, Despite there being proof, right? Despite there being proof that you are a good social worker, it's almost like we have to get to a point where we feel confident in that ourselves before we're able to say that about ourselves out loud. Almost like a humility kind of thing. We're being humble about our skills. So just a definition of imposter syndrome is when high achieving individuals will doubt their skills or their accomplishments and have this fear of being exposed as a fraud, right? Or a fake, or not actually perpetuating what it is to be a good social worker, despite there being evidence of our competence. So even with having evidence of competence, imposter syndrome is still having those feelings of being a fraud or faking it till you make it kind of situation. So I want us all to take a moment to share. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome yourself? And if so, in what context? Was this at in school? Was this at work? Could be in your internship and even in interpersonal relationships. And I saw Morgan is wanting to share.
Yes, I have the best story for you all. When I started in my current position, so I'm currently a home-based crisis intervention specialist. So you're working with high-risk kids. They're at risk of being removed out of the home, suicidal ideation, behavioral concerns, the whole nine yards, like last resort type of in-home services. So I got handed a case to me. It was my first case to be out on my own. So was previously a trauma coordinator, and before that, I was a residential youth advocate. So I only had like 2 years under my belt of any type of human services. And I get handed this case, and it's a 16-year-old female hates every provider that comes into their home. Every single one. There's history of her being physical with providers that have came into the home. There's history of her being physical with her parent. Lots of just aggression and verbal defiance and stuff. So I go to the home and I meet this child for the first time. And as I'm going to knock on the door, I'm hearing, "Fuck you!" Blah, 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 back and forth, screaming at each other. And it's the parent and the child screaming at each other. And I start questioning, am I going to be able to manage this? So I go in, and the mom explains to me she doesn't want to talk to you. She's mad about this, mad about that, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, do you mind if I knock on the door and try to see if she wants to talk? So I go and knock on the door, and she answers it, like her bedroom door, and answers the door. And I said, "Hey, you seem really upset. Would you want to go for a walk or something?" Looks me up and down like this. No. And slams the door in my face. And at the time, I'm 22, 23, no, maybe 23, 24. So I don't know what to do, and I end up leaving. I was there for 10 minutes. I'm sobbing on the way home. I'm telling myself, I can't do this job. I'm never going to be able to do this job. I have no idea what I was thinking. I don't know why I thought I would even be capable of this and all this other stuff. So my supervisor, then I explained to my supervisor, like, why were you there for 10 minutes? And I said, well, the kid didn't want anything to do with me. And she says, I'm going to tell you something right now. These kids expect people never to show up for them, ever. They expect that. Go back there and see what happens. So I took that advice. I went back and I saw the kid, and the kid was willing to meet with me for that time. So I meet with her and I explained to her how, like, listen, I'm not here to take you away. I'm not here to do all these other things. And literally, this kid has a cigarette and is just smoking. I'll talk to me, 16 years old and just smoking. And I just let it slide and I continue to work through it. And by the end of that time, by the time I was going to discharge her, she told me that, you were the best provider I've ever had. And she said, I'm going to be really sad when you have to go. And I said, I'm going to tell you something. The first time I met you, I sobbed and I was going to quit my job. And she felt horrible. She told me, I'm so sorry I talked to you that way. It's just like I just am going through all this stuff and all this other. I said, no, I understand now, but I needed that because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. So I think about that case a lot because that's where I questioned my like ability 100%. I was going to quit.
Yeah.
Didn't think I could do it. So, but yeah, that's where I've experienced it.
Thank you for sharing, Morgan. And it sounds like that was a great opportunity for maybe like your mindset to change a little bit and your own capabilities and just say, wait a minute, okay, I can do this. I am doing a good job. I do know what I'm doing.
I am capable of this, yes, and it took me a while to get it, but that case helped me immensely. So,
Love that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Does anybody else have a quick example of feeling imposter syndrome? Yes, Sam.
So mine is not on a career level. Mine's more of on a personal level. So probably about 8 years ago, I had my first child and my only child. Um, and after I gave birth, uh, I definitely experienced some imposter syndrome. I did not think I could be a mother, to the point where I was not connected with my son. I think a lot of it was obviously, I did suffer from some very extreme postpartum depression and anxiety. But it was more, I was struggling thinking that I could even be a mom. I was 20 something at the time. And I was just, I cannot do this. I don't know what it takes to be a mom. I'm not one of those moms that you see on TV or out, not even like my own mom. I compared myself to my own mom. Like, she has 6 kids. I am not that. I am not a mom. I'm not a, but eventually it changed. Obviously I'm in a much better place now. And I love being a mom. But I can definitely say 8 years ago, I was definitely in that situation.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. That actually makes a lot of sense. I feel like I do hear that given as an example often, right? Parenting, being a mom. Um, and just something you'd mentioned was comparing, that you were comparing yourself to your mom and her parenting. And I think that is important to note that I think that happens often where individuals, us included as social workers, will compare ourselves to others or other social workers that have been in the field for far longer than us. And again, have totally different lives and experiences. And I think it's easy to compare and say, well, I'm not on their level, so I'm not doing a good job. Okay, for sake of time, I want to move on to our next discussion question. So I want us to also think about connecting imposter syndrome to our self-esteem. So how do you think that imposter syndrome affects your self-esteem or your confidence? And what type of internal messages are you noticing when you are feeling this way? Feel free to either raise your hand or just unmute yourself and share.
I feel like they're heavily connected with each other because I think imposter syndrome like stems from having like low self-esteem, not like necessarily about yourself, but just like about your capabilities, I guess, in your profession. Um, And I feel like the thoughts you would have was like, I don't know enough, like I can't handle this. Just like a lot of self-doubt, like not good self messages at all.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand, right? Like you don't feel like you're good enough, you don't feel like you can do this, whatever it is, if it's related to career, personal, you don't feel like you have enough qualifications, you don't feel like you're smart enough. Um, so when you don't feel like you're not good enough, I mean, your self-esteem, that's negative. That's a negative view. You're feeling defeated, you're feeling bad about yourself. So it definitely is connected,
Kind of goes hand in hand. It's
hand in hand.
linked. Yeah, thank you, Sam. I feel like this is a good connection to actually Joy's presentation earlier around words and positive self-talk, whereas this is the opposite side of the coin, right? Where negative self-talk and internal messages that we're giving ourselves are going to have an effect on how competent we feel. What, Joy, you wanted to share?
Yeah, my thought, whenever I feel I could go down that slippery slope is what if I hurt somebody else? That's it, I take it outside of myself and how am I impacted another person?
Yeah,
The last thing I want to do is harm somebody else. And that's where I'm gonna flip it up back on myself and then go, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough because I could possibly harm somebody.
right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Joy. Um, again, just keeping my eye on the time. I want to sneak in one more discussion question. Um, I want us to talk about coping and confidence building as social workers. So I think we have all shared that it's a pretty common feeling that at least it sounds like we've all in this group felt this feeling or have felt like an imposter at one point in time. So what has helped you or what do you think would help in building confidence? And how do you remind yourself of your value or your strengths as a social worker? Yes, Joy.
One thing that one of my instructors for massage was you have to relax and breathe because you'll find that you'll stop breathing and that's not going to help you or anybody else. So just breathe and know that you know everything already. You just have to let it unfold.
That's great advice. Great advice. Thanks, Joy. Yeah, Morgan.
I always thought supervision, like if you have a good supervisor and stuff like that, especially in the work field, is communicating with them and finding that guidance. I also like to remind myself that these feelings are only temporary. I live by it's only temporary a lot. So that's something else that I do.
I like that a lot, Morgan. Yeah, just getting those affirmations, I think, too, that we need from our supervisor and the reassurance that you are doing well.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with what Morgan said too. I feel like getting an outside opinion because then you're like, oh, maybe this really is like all in my head. Like it's not actually that way.
We do tend to be really hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up, and it's almost like a practice what you preach kind of thing, right? Because as social workers, I feel like we spend a lot of our time trying to implement these coping strategies with our clients and trying to shift our clients' mindset into more positive self-talk and believing in themselves, um, and just setting realistic goals and utilizing peers for support. So those very same skills and techniques and advice that we're giving our clients, we really need to follow those ourselves too and practice what we preach. Essentially, it's kind of a double-edged sword when we're telling our clients one thing, but we're not following that ourselves. So looks like we're coming up on time, so I'll wrap up quick. Did anyone want to add anything about imposter syndrome or had any questions before we wrap up? Actually, hold that because I'm going to ask for one quick takeaway anyway. So I just wanted to thank everyone for sharing today. I know that this was a topic that it seems like we all have had some experience with and resonated on together. So just in this session, we've been able to explore how imposter syndrome shows up in each of our lives, how it affects us and our sense of self, and some techniques and ideas of what we can do to cope and move past it and be successful social workers. So, what's one quick insight or takeaway that you are leaving with today? Could just be a quick sentence, or how are you feeling after this chat? We
I'm
don't
feeling
all have to
good.
go. You feel good?
Well, feel good. This is a good conversation.
Good. I like
I
it.
was I was gonna say I feel like validated, I guess, that like everyone else in this group has experienced this feeling, so it's not like just a me thing.
That's how I was feeling, Natalie. I was going to say validated myself. Joy,
Yeah,
Sam?
and I like how Morgan said, it will pass. It really
Mhm.
does. I mean, we've all made it this far.
Yeah, exactly.
Let us take away like positivity, right? Like power of positivity. You just gotta be positive. Even
Yeah,
if even if you like way down here, right? Like just be positive. It's like Morgan said again, it's temporary.
yeah, I like that. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody again just for being so open and having this conversation today. I appreciate everyone's participation. Um, I think we should continue to have these kinds of conversations in our social work support group here, and it just builds self-awareness and confidence and provides the support that we need. Everybody take care today, and remember to be kind to yourself and know that you're never alone in feeling this way. So thank you everyone for coming today, and I'll see everybody next week, same time.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
Thanks,
you.
guys.